After just one game at Alabama State, Andrew Body unfortunately has a shoulder injury that will cost him the remainder of his season, and that sounds just like last year. Oh yeah, it's Locked On HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darian Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and current contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire. Thank you for going on this journey with me. Make a Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day, every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey is over. Just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Starts with an S and ends with an S. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And now, through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can get 3 weeks free of NFL Sunday Ticket through YouTube and YouTube TV by putting down a $5 bet. Go to FanDuel.com/locked on to get started. Audio, this hopefully does not impact you. Hopefully you're not able to hear it. However, for all of my video watchers, you may wonder, why do things look a little bit weird? And you may look at the On Today's Show segment and say, why does it look like that? There's only one thing here right now, because I recorded Thursday's episode, edited Thursday's episode, put it all together, and then late Wednesday night, the news broke. Andrew Body is undergoing shoulder surgery, which means he is out for the season. I will take what was supposed to be segment 1 and 2, which is Jackson State's Newcomers, and then also Morgan State versus Towson, and I will push that to segment 2 and 3. So let's open up with the biggest news. You may have woken up to it. Who knows? Maybe you woke up and saw that we had the live stream rolling, and now you're informed that Andrew Body is out for the season. So let's sit here and let's talk together about everything that this means. So first off, shout out to KT Mosley. Shout out to Ralph Cooper, two Houston real based guys. They both had this story first. I seen Ralph Cooper have it as a tweet. I wasn't sure what to make of it. I wanted to wait to see everything that came out after, though he is typically pretty reliable. And then late Wednesday night, Kyle T. Mosley, he went ahead and he broke the news that Andrew Body is undergoing shoulder surgery and he will miss the rest of the season. Body's time in Alabama State is likely done. I don't see him coming back to Alabama State. And it's very unfortunate, but I just know that he didn't go expecting what happened, right? Like, I don't think he expected to be used in that way. I don't think that he expected to be used primarily as a runner. I think that's another thing that's going to change, and we'll get to that. But I just don't think that that's going to sit well with everybody involved. That's just not how he wants to be used. And if that's how you were used in that one time that you played for the team, you're more than likely not going to come back. So I suspect that we've seen the last of Andrew Body in Alabama State. I don't know if that means we've seen the last of him in the HBCU realm. He could still go to another school, could go to a SWAC school, could go to a MEAC school, but I don't expect it to be Alabama State, and I don't expect him to return to Texas Southern. So it'll be somewhere that he hasn't seen before, if I just had to guess, right? But I want to read to you exactly what Kyle said. So Kyle said, following the game, an MRI revealed the extent of Andrew Body's injury. Alabama State's quarterback will have an arthroscopic surgery to add to an additional anchor to one of the muscles supporting the rotator cuff. The procedure requires sutures passing through the torn tendon to be tied to the bone and aid in healing. For those who are into medical conversations, there you go. That has everything. For those who are not, which is kind of me, I will say this. Andrew Body is having surgery, and that is the end of him in 2024. That's all we really need to know, right? And this is unfortunate because it feels just like last year. Last year, Body played one game, the Labor Day Classic, and he had to sit the rest of the year with a shoulder injury. This all stems from, or that stemmed from, I won't say this here because I think he got it corrected, but that stemmed from a 2022 shoulder injury. And now all of these things are happening to his throwing arm. There is a lot of concern here. I think that the stretch, there we go. I think that the stretch of shoulder injuries could have a lasting impact on Body in a way that we don't expect. Um, I've always liked Body as a dual threat quarterback, and these shoulder injuries will impact each one of those dual threats. It's his throwing shoulder. So we don't know how he'll be able to recover. That will be TBD. But I think he may be less willing as a runner because you keep having these shoulder injuries. You're not going to want to keep taking these impacts. You're going to want to protect yourself. And in protecting yourself, you may not want to run as much. That's just real. We're talking about a throwing shoulder. So people are, of course, going to look at, well, is his accuracy going to be thrown off? Is his power going to be thrown off? But the thing that makes Andrew Body special is the fact that he does both. He runs and he passes. He may be a less willing runner now that he has two shoulder injuries in the last 2 years. This is a concern for his style of play. When you look at how he was used in that one game at Alabama State, they kept running the rock with him. You can't do that moving forward. You have to be more careful wherever he lands. Wherever he lands, that cannot be the usage. I think that he is a good passer. We'll see how he's able to recover from this because, once again, it is his throwing shoulder. But if he can bounce back, then y'all know, man, he went to Texas Southern. I do like Body. I hope that he's able to bounce back. I hope that he's able to get well, sending love and sending well wishes to the family, of course. But this is a tough one because it's repeated. So now this is the second year in a row that you have to deal with something with the shoulder. I don't think it's the same injury, but it's just something with the shoulder. As far as Alabama State goes, everybody knows now. Well, it's funny because Jonah O'Brien's injury, I feel like, was kept under wraps. I wasn't sure if that was purposeful or not. So I just, all right, not going to say too much. I alluded to it in what was supposed to be segment 3, but now we can talk about it because it's out. There's no expectation. Obviously, Body's not going to play. There's not an expectation that you're going to see Jonah O'Brien. So now you're going to have to go to the young players. Right now, you're going to have to go to some freshmen. I think that Alabama State's quarterback situation did not lose any intrigue with Andrew Body leaving. Maybe the ceiling is different because I had a lot of belief in Alabama State based off of Andrew Body. And I think that what he showed me on Sunday kind of validated that belief. You still needed to use him in a different way. But here's the thing. With Andrew Body being out, and I think the majority of us can agree that he gave Alabama State the best chance to win, not only on Sunday, but what looked like the rest of the season as well. If Jonah O'Brien is going to miss this week's game, now you're going to have some young players who are going to be competing to be that starting quarterback. This battle isn't over. This battle didn't lose intrigue because I don't think that Jonah O'Brien did enough on Sunday to say, hey, Andrew Body's out, I'm now your starting quarterback. No, it's still up for grabs. It's just between O'Brien and who else is going to be next to him. This is going to be very fascinating, this is going to be something to watch and really follow. So I think as the weekend happens, maybe we'll get some more information. I'll revisit this either on Monday or Tuesday, probably Tuesday, to be honest. But Andrew Body is out for the season. He has a shoulder injury that's going to cost him the rest of the year. I think that this is going to impact his style of play, and I do think that this is the last time that we see him in Alabama State uniform. He'll be there throughout the duration of the season, throughout the duration of the semester. I don't know if he'll be back for the spring, but he'll be back for the rest of the fall. He did the same thing with Texas Southern, and then he left. That's what I expect happens today. When I wake up, I'll probably try to send some well wishes out to the family, send love. Hope y'all do the same. Hope he gets better. Now, as we push forward, we're going to take a look at Jackson State's Newcomers, which was supposed to be our opening segment. But instead, we're going to push that on to segment 2 because Jackson State has some players that are new to the program, first-year players in the program. One's a first-year collegiate player, period. And they really stepped up against University of Louisiana and Monroe. I want to highlight these players as well as some other things that I took away from the game as we continue with Locked On HBCU. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked on HBCU, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And FanDuel is great because it's football season. This is the moment that you've been waiting for. No more telling you about how the sports may not be sporting. They are here. They are present. And because football is here, FanDuel wants to allow you the benefit of getting 3 weeks free with the NFL Sunday ticket through YouTube or YouTube TV. Now, Baltimore versus Kansas City tonight. Put down a $5 bet and you'll get 3 weeks free. Doesn't matter if you're an existing customer, doesn't matter if you're a new customer, all of that. The WNBA, if you want to, you have that. You have baseball still rolling. You have week 1 on Sunday. You actually have a game today and tomorrow, a game in Brazil between the Packers and the Eagles. All of these things are for you. All you have to do is put down a $5 bet. $5 bet, and you get a 3-week free trial of the NFL Sunday ticket. As somebody who has that product, I'm telling you right now, if I could get 3 weeks free of it, I would. So that's my message to you. Go to fanduel.com/locked on today to make every moment more. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked on HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day. For your second listen, make sure you're checking out Locked on College Football with Spencer McLaughlin because Saturday is big. We got Michigan versus University of Texas. Ooh-wee. You already know that Spencer is going to be breaking down all the things you need to know for that big time matchup. And it's an early game, too. You can get that in before any of the HBCU coverage. And then you can come back to what I've been telling you about, which is tomorrow's game of the week, North Carolina Central versus Elon. But Jackson State, it's been a while. It's been a while since we opened up the show talking to each other, and you have some new faces since the last time that we've spoken. And I like what I've seen. I like what I saw from the new players on Jackson State in their first game against University of Louisiana at Monroe. I really did. I want to go through about, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5, because one guy isn't new, but he's just getting more playing time than he ever had at JSU. So we're going through 4 new players in a possible, right? So like 4 in a pop. That's what we're talking about in spades. Let's kick it off with the true freshman out of high school. So this guy is not a transfer player. He's an anomaly in this situation. And that's Travis Terrell Jr., the true freshman running back, small guy, right? I think he's listed at 165 pounds, 5'8", not a big guy at all, but he took a lot of workload on Thursday. Yeah, y'all played on Thursday. On Thursday's game. And I thought he handled it very well. I thought he ran the ball really well. However, when you're 165 pounds at the running back position, you know what we're expecting of you. We're expecting you to be able to operate in space. We're expecting you to be able to catch. So I think that the fact that he was able to run the ball, that's a bonus. It's a plus. It's something that you like from him. I liked his toughness, but I did see them throw a couple of passes and get him in the space and allow him to just work his magic. So now I'm sitting here thinking about when Irv Mulligan gets back, when JD Martin gets back, Travis Terrell is still here. They're gonna get the freshman, the Nate train. Dang, I forgot Nate's last name right now, but they're gonna get him rolling too in week 2. I'm starting to look at that Jackson State running back room, and I'm thinking, y'all, all right, y'all could be a little dangerous because Mulligan is a guy who could easily be the best running back in this conference this year. He easily could. I loved what I saw from Mulligan in 2023. And you have a guy like Terrell who can operate in space. That immediately pairs with each other. I don't care about anybody else in the room. We can get to all of them later. But right now, if I'm just looking at Mulligan and his ability to be a big play threat, to be a grueling back, and I'm looking at Terrell, yes, he has the ability to run, but he can also be the guy who catches in space. I'm looking at a pairing. I'm looking at a tandem that can do a lot of damage to a lot of different defenses in different ways. So they're very complementary. Another offensive guy, Marvin Lee, not Larry, Marvin Landy, the tight end, number 88. So Travis Terrell was 0, but you had 88, the tight end. And I just thought personally, he kept showing up in different facets. He had a good block on that Jacoby and Morgan touchdown run. He had a good block on, it was a swing pass. I think not a swing pass, but a sweep, a toss. And he had a good block there too. It was on the 3rd and 3 by Ahmad Miller. Like you're looking at a player who he's a tight end and he's blocking, but he's also making big catches down the field. He's also making big catches in the intermediate side. So if we're talking about a day and age where you have to be able to catch the football, You just have to as a tight end now. It's non-negotiable. If you're just going to be a blocking tight end, there'll be a role for you, but we won't discuss you that much. Those guys don't typically get talked about. Guys like Leary, just skill set wise, somebody who can block, somebody who can catch. Those are the people, somebody who can run after the catch. Those are guys that we're going to look at. Now, they tell me he's 235. I don't know. He looked bigger than 235 on the screen. I haven't seen him in person, obviously. I'm not standing next to him, but I think he looked a lot bigger than 235. I thought he looked more in the 240s, bumping up against 250 maybe, right? Like that was just how I looked at it. Um, so let's get to a big guy because I'm trying to make sure we get through this. And I also want to look at a couple of other things other than just your new players. You had Joshua Nobles, edge defender, number 2. He came from Western Michigan. I just thought he was a force on the defensive line. I thought that he did a good job, maybe not getting all of the tackles, but I thought he did a good job penetrating. I thought that he did a good job just making disruption in the backfield, usually for somebody else to clean up. But you just saw him, man. He was a workhorse. You saw him slanting, you saw him crashing. I thought that he had a really good game, despite the fact that he wasn't, racking up an enormous amount of tackles. But now you get to the 2 players who were. Number 7, linebacker Reed Pulliam, excuse me. Shout out my fellow lock brother, right? And that's one of the reasons you catch him, because he has these flowing locks out the back of his helmet. You can't help but notice him when he's running around the field, like, oh, there goes 7, there goes 7, there goes 7, because he's got the hair. But he's also making plays. He has a little bit more weight on him than his running mate at the linebacker position. And you saw it on a particular play where they're both flying, they're both fast, but Pulliam clearly had more power. And you could tell that because he rocked the guy and he went backwards. That was something I didn't see a lot of for Jackson State, but it was one play in particular that I did notice it, and it was Pulliam, and that's when he got on my radar, right? And then I go and I look, oh, you have a boatload of tackles. You're number 2 in tackles on the night. Number 1 is Ashton Taylor, and he's a guy who he didn't transfer in this year. He was there last year, but he barely played. That's my possible. That's my half. Technically, he's not a new player, but he's stepping into a much bigger role, and he was eye-catching because he flies around the football. He flies downhill. He flies past offensive linemen frequently. I think that when you get into the SWAC and you see him start doing this, those plays against ULM that he just got barely past the line of scrimmage and he wasn't quite there, those are going to be plays where he breaks past the line of scrimmage and he's able to make a play on the running back. And it'll just be about whether or not he can make those tackles, right? Because trench work is different. That's the one thing that you will always hear. When you jump a subdivision, the biggest obstacle is getting past the trenches. So all of this I try to make it all flow together, but you see in these new players and on the defensive side of the ball, they're all on the front 7. I thought that Jackson State did a much better job than you would typically expect for an HBCU going against an FBS competition in the trenches. If that's where the biggest difference is, and I understand that ULM, they don't have the biggest the biggest defensive line, but on both sides of the ball, I won't say that they won the trench battle, but they won their fair share of reps. I thought that they were definitely evenly matched. They looked like they belonged. They didn't look out of place as far as defensive linemen and offensive linemen. They started opening up better holes in the second half for the running back. I thought that they protected Jacoby and Morgan better than you may have expected. This was a really good performance on the offensive and defensive lines for Jackson State. And if that's typically the biggest gap when you jump a subdivision, and it wasn't a huge gap for JSU, that bodes well. That's one of the reasons that people are saying, yeah, these Tigers are one of those. So lastly, you got to go to the quarterback, and I'm going to be really quick. I didn't think that he was asked to do too much on Thursday. I thought that they gave him a bunch of easy throws, things that were very rhythm based. I didn't think it was overly difficult. And typically you may knock somebody for that. But he made one play that said, yeah, I got the arm. He had a couple of passes that I thought were good. Don't get me wrong. But it was one play in particular, and it was this deep wheel shot to Marvin Landy, and it was right in the pocket. Landy had broke off on a wheel route. The linebacker was a tad bit too slow, and you saw the pass just beautifully touched right over the shoulder, right into the pocket, and it was right in front of another defender. So when you look at that play, I don't have any questions about can he make these throws. I just think that the offensive coordinator did a good job of not requiring him to make too many. That was just easy work. And we'll see as games get tighter, as games get more important, you'll have to make some of those big time throws. But as of right now, he did what he was asked to do. And he also showed me that if he's asked to do more, he can. So I liked what I saw from Jacoby and Morgan. I like what I saw from the new guys. That's Terrell, Landy, Nobles, Pulliam, and Taylor, even though he's not technically new. As we push forward, I want to look at Morgan State. And speaking of new, they won in a completely new way. They leaned on their offense. Let's break that down as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is the number one place for all of my small business owners. I feel like it's been a while. Since we talked about this too. It's been a while for Jackson State. It's been a while for LinkedIn, but I'm glad to bring both of you into the fold. Now, 70% of people who try LinkedIn don't even go to the other job boards because they understand this is where all the prime employers are. All the prime employers understand that this is where all the prime candidates are. So it's a mutually beneficial relationship between everybody involved. LinkedIn, the people looking for a job, the people looking to hire. Now, if you are a small business owner, I understand that. I get the grind. How about you fill any vacancy that you have in any department? Doesn't matter if it's HR, doesn't matter if it's accounting, doesn't matter if it's security. You can have people for all of that, all here on LinkedIn.com. So go to LinkedIn.com/locked on. You'll be able to post your job for free. And over 86% of people small businesses on LinkedIn get a qualified candidate within the first 24 hours of listing their job. So over 86 people in 100 will get a qualified candidate in the first day. So go ahead and go to LinkedIn.com/locked on and find your match now. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day, every day, making it all the way to segment 3, and I thank you 2 times for that. It was a very close one. It was very close between North Carolina Central versus Elon, and then also Morgan State versus Towson. I ended up going with the former because I watched all of North Carolina Central. I felt like I could give you a better preview show on Friday if we went Central versus Elon as opposed to Morgan State versus Towson because I don't have Flow Sports. If there's a way to get around Flow Sports, somebody let me know. But I don't have Flow Sports, so I didn't watch Morgan State. I didn't feel like it was fair to give you a breakdown on the team I hadn't really watched. But here's the thing. It's a co-main event of the evening. It almost feels as if you have, and then y'all know I'm a big UFC guy. When you have 2 title fights on the card, well, somebody has to be the co-main event, right? Like you can't always have you can't have 2 main events. You can have co-main events to showcase that they're both very important. And that's what this feels like. I actually almost thought about doing a hybrid episode where I just combined both of the games, but I couldn't figure out how that would work. And last thing I wanted was to not be able to make it work and not have to talk about Morgan, or not talk about Morgan. But I had to because I'm super excited for what they bring to the table. The Morgan State Bears are a very fascinating team. The Morgan State Bears are a team that in week 1, they won in a sense that I didn't believe that they would, or in a way that I didn't think that they would. They had offense. That's the question around them. They had to lean on their offense. Most importantly, it's not the fact that they showcased the offense. I'm not saying that was expected, but we were desiring it and we were looking for it. So it wasn't like, oh my God, didn't see that coming. We were at least looking. So we were trying to see if the offense would get better. But they won in a high scoring affair to open up the season. That's not typical. When you look at Morgan State defensively, that's where they truly eat. Defensively, that's where they make their money on the team. That's where they win. You look at the stars of Morgan State. It's Elijah Williams and it's Eric Hunter. Those are 2 players on the front 7. So you expect defensively, and they got some really good cornerbacks. I'm gonna mess up his name, so I'm not gonna say it. But I'm gonna mess up his name, so yeah, I'm not gonna say it. But like they have a really solid cornerback, right? And overall, I was surprised to see that they gave up 28 points to Hampton. No disrespect to Hampton. That was who they were facing that week, and I didn't expect them to give up 28 points to them. Maybe if they were going up in competition, I would have been like, oh, okay, I get it. But I had to go look. How does Hampton get to 28 points? Well, they get 2 short fields. One less than 30, one less than 50. You had 2 drives that started in opponent territory, and they end up resulting in touchdowns. So I think that's a little bit different. I feel like if you're how do I want to phrase this? If you're giving up 28 points and 14 of those came on short fields, of course you want to not give up those sudden change points. They were bad drives as far as punts. They started off, or excuse me, Hampton got the ball off of a punt, but it was very bad. One ended up at the 26, one ended at the 40. It was horrendous, right? Now it's a little bit more understandable on how they gave up 28 points. You still want to not give up those. You want to turn some of those into field goals. And on that 40-yard drive, there was an explosive play. Like Malcolm Mays had an explosive throw of about 30 yards for a touchdown. So you can't just, oh, it's a short field and just chalk it up to that. You still have to be better. But it's a little bit more understanding. I thought that Hampton had a really good running back tandem last year with Darren Butts and Elijah Burris. Butts is gone, but Burris is still around. Burris is still around, and I think that he's a solid back. So for them to hold him to a really not a good game, he didn't even hit 3 yards per carry. For them to hold him to that, I thought that was a really good job by them on the front seven. I thought that they did that well, but unfortunately, they weren't able to stop Malcolm Mays. The quarterback ran, and that was the problem. That was where the majority of the yardage came from. Mays was the leading rusher with about 60 what? See if I wrote it down exactly. Now I don't have the exact number that he had. Oh, yes, I do. 63 yards. 63 yards. That's the problem. So I think some of that is about discipline. It's not as much of, it's like when you're pass rushing, you want to make sure that you stay in your lanes. You don't want to open up wide lanes. I think that there's different ways to look at allowing the quarterback to run. It's not understandable. It's not acceptable, but it's just different. It's not the same as a running back running over you. It's one of those things that you don't expect to happen on a week to week basis. But if a running back's running all over you, now we can continue to have those conversations every week. Will the next running back run all over you? That's different. It takes a long time for you to get to the point where the quarterback running on you is a thing that you're looking for. And I can say that because with the Saints, I felt as if quarterback runs became a significant issue. So just about how you look at it. But offensively, they were running the rock. They were running the rock, man, and they split it up about 3 ways. They split that rock up 3 ways. Keith Jenkins has 69 yards. Miles Marie had 68 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jason Collins had 55 yards and a touchdown. And Collins's touchdown was a 41-yard scamper. So that's a big play. House call. You're looking at the running game that's going absolutely crazy. Just between those 3 guys, you're totaling up nearly 200 yards, right? Just between those guys, you're looking at what? 140 plus 50, looking at about 190. So you're almost at 200 yards. That's the crazy part when you really look at it. That's what, 192 just between those 3 guys. If you can get that type of production consistently, Morgan State has something to talk about. But one thing we need to talk about is that quarterback position, because Todd Smith, it's the Todd Smith era. He only threw 8 passes, had 4 sacks. I'm sure some of his run plays were designed, called passes that he ended up scrambling on. But we got to do better. I think we have to throw the ball more. I don't know what the thing is. I'm going to watch this game. I'm not going to pass too much judgment. I can only go based off of the box score, and that's always bad. Don't do that, guys. But you do what you got to do. You want more from Smith in the passing game. He had a big throw late in the game, but he still didn't total up to 100 yards. I think that if Morgan State is going to achieve what they could achieve, then he's going to have to play better. He's going to have to rack up more yards, period. Let me just say that. But I'm super excited for this game versus Towson. It was a close one last year. I expect it to be another close one again. Or at least I'm hoping that it will be. But the reason that I'm super excited for this matchup is Morgan State looked good against Hampton. And we've seen solid teams struggle against Hampton last year. We'll see what they do this year. But Hampton is a team who Morgan State ran all up and down them. I want to see if they can do that to another opponent who is outside of the MEAC. I know they're still technically an HBCU, but Towson isn't now. I just want to see some of their offensive progress. If that's there, I want to see if the defense can have a bounce back performance and allow less points. This is very interesting. Morgan State has a chance to put themselves on the map because there's a lot of eyes on the Bears. And if they go out there and they beat Towson in the battle for Baltimore, then we having a completely different conversation. And on tomorrow, we'll be looking at a big evaluation for North Carolina Central. What are they? Are they still who they used to be? That's the biggest conversation. I'll look at that storyline in segment 2 on our game of the week. But in the meantime, between time, till next time that we hear each other, family, take care, stay blessed. Peace.